Hello and welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. I'm Renee Williams and I'm here with my co-host Billy Thomas, and today we have another jam-packed full show for you.
Yeah, it seems like we do it every week, Renee, but there's just so many great topics in forestry and natural resources here in Kentucky, and we're just glad to show you all a variety of these. Well, I'm going to be talking today about the Woodland Owner Short Course. It's virtual now. It's an opportunity for you to go. We also have a tree week coming up here in Kentucky next week, and we're celebrating that in partnership with the Urban Forestry Initiative. So many of us here in the UK Forestry and Natural Resources Extension team will be providing presentations throughout next week on various tree-related topics. We also have our Tree of the Week, and there's a comment period open for genetically modified organisms. Dr. Crocker's going to talk about that a little bit. So again, Renee, a big show with a lot of great content.
Packed house today. So I guess we need to go ahead and get started, and it's you.
So I'll get the ball rolling with this. So COVID gave us an opportunity. I will take it.
Let's put it that way, yes.
Yeah, so and the opportunity was we ended up having to do our Woodland Owner Short Course this past year virtually. Typically, it's an in-person type of program. So we're trying to make some lemonade, and I think we've really got a great batch of lemonade with this one, Renee. We have been able to create from that programming a virtual Woodland Owner Short Course. And I want to go over that, show you how you can access it, and kind of go over some of the content. And then as part of my presentation, I want to show you also a couple of examples of some of the video content that we've been able to record. And it's been a huge effort by this whole UK Forestry and Natural Resources Extension team to pull this off. And a big thanks to all the team members, many of which have contributed very heavily. And Renee, I know you and Brianna kind of behind the scenes have done so much to get us to this point. So a big thanks to you. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation with the team. So we're here to talk about the virtual Woodland Owners Short Course. This program is really easily accessible through the internet. So we've got the little URL. You can get to it through there. We've been really redesigning the whole Woodland Owners Short Course section of our website, and we've really launched its own website, if you will, based on that work. And Renee, a big thanks to you and the team for all that work on that. So this is how you can access the virtual Woodland Owners Short Course. And really what the virtual Woodland Owner Short Course provides is a series of woodland and wildlife related educational programs. So, and really with a focus on doing practices that can make our woods healthier and more productive. So we do that through a variety of ways, and all you have to do is register to do that. There is currently no charge for this, but we do ask for registration, and that registration allows us to stay in touch with you as new issues arrive related to forestry and natural resources. It also allows us to kind of document the impact that this programming efforts has, so which always is an important thing for us, and it allows us the opportunity to evaluate how well we're doing to try to make adjustments as we go forward. This series contains more than 10 hours of educational content from a wide variety of forestry and wildlife and other natural resource professionals. We got 5 of our UK Forestry and Natural Resource Extension specialists are presenting content as part of this program, and I can't thank them enough. It includes Chad Nyman and Laurie Thomas and Ellen Crocker and Matt Springer and Jacob Muller. So a big thanks to each of them for their contributions to this program. We also, as part of the Woodland Owner Short Course, we try to connect woodland owners with those that can help them. And there are a number of partner organizations here in Kentucky that are available to help woodland owners. Now, some of these partner organizations have sister agencies in other states. So if you're tuning in from another state, I would encourage you to kind of explore your state-specific partners that are out there. But I am pretty sure that you will find most of the same ones in your state as well. But these videos are a great way to introduce landowners to these organizations and all the different ways that they can help landowners kind of care for their property. Some of them offer technical assistance, and some of them offer financial assistance that can come really valuable to kind of help get some of these practices implemented on the ground. In addition, we also have visited 5 of Kentucky State Forests. So we have videos about Kentucky State Forest, 5 of those intros, and there's a few more, but we couldn't get to all of them. But we also highlighted 7 different practices that are pretty commonly deployed here in the state of Kentucky. And we had Kentucky Division of Forestry foresters discussing and showcasing some of these practices. So the ideal here is to provide a field experience related to this, so you can actually see some of these practices in action, even if we couldn't physically get to those. So a big thanks to the Kentucky Division of Forestry for being a part of this and supporting this effort. They've been just an amazing partner, so I can't thank the Kentucky Division of Forestry enough for all of their support. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about, what the short course contains. So once you register, you'll get access to the Woodland Owner Short Course. Again, there's no charge for registration, but basically we need an email and a little bit of information, and that'll get you registered. But once you register, you'll get this link to the website, and here you'll be able to find the various components that we've talked a little bit about. You'll notice here we got the Green Track webinars, and that's access to those. I'll talk a little bit more about what these tracks mean in a second. The gold track, as well as the partner videos down here, and the state forest virtual tour videos as well. So again, more than 10 hours of educational content are tied up in this virtual Woodland Owner Short Course. So it's a good opportunity for landowners and others with an interest in forestry and wildlife to kind of get a lot of content at their leisure and at their own pace. So talk real briefly about these tracks. So the Woodland Owner Short Course tries to be accessible regardless of your level of experience. So we have a wide variety of woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky. Some of them may have just acquired the property. Others may have had it for a long time and been doing active management. So we've tried to provide an entry point to the Woodland Owner Short Course for both of those audiences. So the green track is really geared toward landowners that may be new woodland owners, or they may be new to the concept of woodland management, and they're just looking to try to find out what the options are available to them. So that's kind of geared toward the green track. And then as you progress and you get more experience and knowledge about woodlands and wildlife here in Kentucky and their management and care, then we have the gold track. And the gold track is really intended for folks that maybe have already been working with a professional to some extent, and they've done maybe some practices, but they're really kind of looking to get more heavily involved and kind of ramp up their level of management on their property. So that's for them. But the great thing that we like about this virtual Woodland Owner Short Course is you can actually go to both tracks. So each of these tracks contains 4 different presentations on very important topics and related to woodland and wildlife management here in Kentucky. So for instance, the green track, we cover tree identification, and that's an opportunity to learn the skill set that will allow you to identify trees, and Laurie Thomas leads that presentation on that. Then we have Dr. Ellen Crocker talking about are your woodlands healthy, and what does woodland health mean, and how do you assess if your woodlands are healthy. So it's a really great introduction into try to understand, are your woodlands healthy currently, and if not, maybe what are some of the things we do. And then we have Dr. Matt Springer talking about the basics of managing wildlife. One of the things that we try to get across with the program is that you can do multiple objectives at the same time on the same piece of property. And a great example of that is if you want to have great wildlife habitat, but you're also interested in growing high quality timber. Those can be very compatible operations. So Dr. Springer talks about managing wildlife, some of the basics of what you need to know if you're interested in either attracting or addressing wildlife on your property. And then we have Dr. Jacob Muller talking about the basics of woodland management. This is kind of getting you geared up to understand about how to go about working with foresters and the services that they can provide, and really kind of gear you up to thinking about how you're going to go about taking the next step in managing your property for whatever reasons your objectives are. So that's our green track. And then we have on our gold track webinars here, it's again a little geared for a little more kind of advanced audience, if you will. We have Chad Nyman talking about small scale logging. A number of folks have interest in this, and we have a lot of folks that have the ability, both physical and with the equipment to actually do some practices. So Chad's presentation goes over many of the different kinds of tools and resources that are available if you're interested in trying to do maybe some small scale logging and management on your own property. So that's a great presentation on that. And then we have Dr. Jacob Muller talking about adaptive forest management. You know, our forests are under so many threats today that they weren't many years ago. So we have to be much more adaptive in the way we approach forest management. So Dr. Muller does a great job kind of going over that in this gold track. And then we're talking about forest health considerations. So Dr. Crocker takes a deeper dive into forest health issues and the things that we need to kind of be addressing if we're really trying to have a very healthy and productive woodland. And then we have Dr. Matt Springer talking a little bit more about kind of advanced wildlife management practices when that can be done here in Kentucky's woodlands to try to help them be more wildlife friendly. So that's our green and gold tracks. And again, a great thing about the virtual woodland owner short course, you don't have to pick just one track. You can start off with the green track and then you can move over to the gold track. That was not possible when we were in person because those happened at the same time. So folks had to kind of self-select into one track or the other. The beauty of this virtual woodland owner short course is it provides that opportunity to attend both tracks. So we hope that you all will take advantage of that, and we hope that you'll help us spread the word about this great opportunity that's available for people with an interest in forestry and wildlife here in the state.
You know, Billy, with them allowing to take either track or both tracks if they want to, you can refresh on some of the things you may have forgotten a little bit, like the tree ID. You may just need a little bit refresher on that, and so that gives them the opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, great point, Renee. And the nice thing about this program is it allows us to, you know, have this available at any time for people, right? So, you know, it could be a Saturday morning. You want to spend a little time. You want to learn about this. You can do it. You got a little time before dinner during the week. You can check out a video or a webinar and get some good content. So we really hope that that flexibility will make it a much more easy for folks to kind of consume and get this content. You know, another piece we talked about was the state forest virtual tour videos. Now, Kentucky has a number of state forests, and we were able to get to 5 of those, and we chose 5 that were spread out across the state. And because we wanted to give kind of the breadth of different practices across the state, but many of the practices really are done at each of these state forests. Now, there may be some nuances that are done at one forest to another based on species composition or topography or other kind of variables, but by and large, they're kind of similar practices. But first, you can learn a little bit about these state forests, and believe it or not, they are accessible to people. So you can actually go and visit many of the places that we saw that are featured in these videos. So, but we do have to kind of orient you a little bit to the state forest, where they're at, what you can do on them. We have some introductory videos on each of these 5 state forests, so please check those out as well. And then in addition, we have those different practices. So we're highlighting 7 common management practices that are done here in Kentucky. We talk about timber harvesting and how to go about that to ensure that we're taking care of that future forest and make sure it's in good place. We also have a tree planting video, which is a common thing, certainly in central Kentucky. Then we have one on intensive plantation management. We'll take a look at that one here in a moment. We have one on installing BMP trails. Those are best management practices, and those are put in on roads and forest roads and forest trails to help keep the water from reaching the stream and to cause some water quality issues. So we got a great video on showing you how to go about those. We have one on a common practice that's often prescribed here in Kentucky called mid-story removal, and that's basically a staged practice where we go in and we take out the mid-story with the intent to try to elevate and advance those baby oak seedlings and others to an advanced stage where they'll be able to be established in that next canopy. And that takes a bit of time. And when we're thinking about harvesting our forests, we really need to think about how we're going to go about that and what that future forest is going to look like. So we can do things in advance that can really set the stage to have a forest that we're interested interested in having. We also have one on dealing with storm damaged timber. We periodically here in Kentucky, we do have storms that can cause some massive damage, and this is an important topic, so we highlight some of the things that can be done and should be done on that as well. And then we also do one on crop tree release, which is a great practice that can be applied on 1 acre or 1,000 acres, and it allows you to kind of focus on the trees that are going to be successful in the long term. So these practices are great. We'll take a look at a couple of those here in just a second. And the other thing I want to mention too before we watch some of these videos is these partner videos. So again, we have 7 different partner organizations highlighted here, and there's more, but these are 7 of the key partner organizations that are available to work with woodland owners here in Kentucky. So and we're going to show you one of these. We're going to show you the Natural Resources Conservation Service video here in a second. And I wanted to highlight this one because this is an agency that many people may not realize also works with woodland owners and can do a lot of support for woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share at this point, Renee, and then I'm going to pull up a couple of those videos. So the first video I want to pull up is the one on the intensive forest management. So and this is really talking about after you've done a tree planting and wanting to come back in and kind of keep that in good shape, right? Renee, often, you know, we see people get excited about planting trees, but there's a little bit of follow-up that has to be done. And you can go in different directions in that. So we take a little deep dive, if you will, into some intensive management options related to these tree plantations. So I'm going to go ahead at this point here.
Okay, so what we have here is another area of our plantation, the Green River State Forest. Most of our acres of management are this type of stuff. And so what we have here is an intensive management area where this was planted in 2004, and about 2010 we started mowing it regularly. Every year we would mow this, and then we also went in and started pruning. The idea was, let's see if it makes any difference on DBH, if it makes any difference on the limbing, so the quality of the tree, and also if there's a difference in survival rate. So that's what we did. We kept this mowed, and when we get in here, you will definitely be able to tell a difference between this and what hasn't been mowed as far as the vegetation. And we are trying to produce high quality timber, and so we're trying to do different things out here to see what works best to get to that goal.
Well, the benefits to extended mowing in your plantations are mainly that you can still walk in it, and a lot of people like this aesthetically. There's nothing wrong with that. For hunters, you may have better access or lanes for your wildlife. You know, you can always, if you choose to prune your trees because you want to grow those future veneer trees, sometimes you can pile that up and create more habitat for animals, even songbirds. At some point, though, a lot of people like this nice manicured look. But at some point you're going to need to let that grow back into more of your traditional normal forest so that you'll have that oak component again. You need to have those advanced seedlings about head high before anything happens to these. But right now we're in a really young plantation. These trees still have a long way to go. So all you have to do right now to take care of them is just give them the growing space they need and enjoy.
So the biggest issue with this as far as failure is probably going to be using your tractor and your bush hog. Early on, if you're not keeping your rows marked and you're mowing, people have trouble mowing over their seedlings. So you got to be careful with that. The other thing is once they get to be this size and you're still in here mowing, it's really easy to bang up the bases of these trees. That's not good for a couple of reasons. Mainly is that you are going to allow, whenever you cut these trees at the bottom, you allow disease in, insects will be drawn to that, you start having rot, and that's what you don't want to do with these butt logs on these trees. So you just have to be very careful with your tractor when you're in here that you're not messing up your trees.
There's always technical assistance on any forestry practice you can think of. Anything related to your woods, we can help. If you were one of the people who started a plantation through Conservation Reserve Program, usually at year 10, they'll give us a call and ask us to come out and evaluate to see whether it's ready to have crop tree release or thin. And at that point, I believe there's some cost share for that work. There are other federal cost share programs that you can take advantage of if your tree needs thinning. It's not so much for pruning, things like that, but if you're ready for pre-commercial thinning, you can get in. And like always, just start with a plan, start with contacting your forester. To me, that out of all the help you can get, just that advice is worth a lot. In summary, there's a lot of help available to you from the day you order your seedlings to this stage of growth where you're thinking now about crop tree release and you're thinking about your future healthy, big, hopefully future veneer trees. You know, the most important part is just that you seek help. And it doesn't matter if it's from KDF, a consulting forester, Fish and Wildlife, NRCS, FSA, any agency. We all cooperate with each other and we will all steer you to the right help. Just the most important thing is that you take advantage of the help. There's so many free services out there available to you. And come by the state forest and you can see these things. This is a great opportunity to be able to see these practices already done so that you'll have an idea of what you are going to deal with and what it's going to look like.
That was a great video on, you know, some things that is going on in the forests.
Yes, yes, and I really appreciate Chris doing that and the team down there. And that's the shortest of those state forest practice videos that we have, a little less than 5 minutes. Some of them are like 25 minutes and they go into a much more depth. And we have a few that are in the 10 to 15-minute range. So, you know, sit back and enjoy those and learn a little bit about some of these practices. And again, you have the option to get out and actually see some of these. So the other video I wanted to show real quick was with our partners, and Chris ended that video as talking about some of these partners, and one that's really important to woodland owners here in Kentucky is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So I want to share their video with the group right now and hope that you'll get a better appreciation and understanding of how they can help woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky, but also to kind of highlight the virtual woodland owner short course and what we've got to offer within that.
My name is Greg Stone. I'm the state conservationist for Kentucky. I work for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And we have a long and glorious history in the state of Kentucky. Of course, we have offices in every state, but in Kentucky, you know, the birthplace of no-till and a whole lot of other innovations have taken place in Kentucky. So personally, I'm thrilled to be in Kentucky. It's a great place to be. NRCS was born in the Dust Bowl, the greatest natural disaster created by man known to history. The Dust Bowl was a horrible situation that came out of some very poor use of natural resources. So born as an agency out of that terrible situation, we were tasked with the job of conserving, helping resource owners, helping natural resource managers and people who make decisions about natural resources to help provide them with the know-how and the ability to work in a voluntary partnership where together we conserve natural resources. We are science-based. Our task is to work on conservation issues only on private land. We do not take care of U.S. owned land, Forest Service, Park Service, other folk do that. Our task is to work with working lands, people with private lands. We actually have two different kinds of funding. A big chunk of it is Farm Bill based. So every time a Farm Bill is passed, there's a number of our programs that get funded through that. The other part is discretionary funding. There are some programs that we have separate funding for, but those are the two sources, the biggest one being Farm Bill. So we work with landowners in two different and importantly distinct ways. The first is we provide technical assistance. And this is providing science, providing technical assistance such as soil science, engineering. There's a whole lot of these specialty fields that we can provide information on. It's about doing design work. It's about making sure we understand the soils we're working on and in. So we provide a lot of that technical assistance. Much of it also comes through our work with universities and colleges around the state. We also do a bunch of work with our fellow agencies, such as the U.S. Forest Service, Division of Forestry, and lots of others. The second important way that we work with landowners is our financial assistance. So we have technical first, financial assistance later. Once we do planning, conservation planning work, we can then look at how we're going to fund that work. How does it get paid for? And there are a couple of programs that are really important in helping us help farmers pay for those important conservation activities. The first one is called EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP for short. EQIP is sort of the we need to get this done program. It's about getting practices that have never existed in a place, getting them established and getting them paid for. Our second program is called CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, and that's about paying for conservation that's already been done. It's sort of a maintenance and a thank you, a way of providing a financial incentive for folks to keep conservation practices on the land. Those are the two most important. So you'll hear us talk about CSP and EQIP quite a lot. And we have funding pools within those programs, some of which are dedicated to forest only. Because these are competitive programs, woodland owners only compete against woodland owners. So you're not competing with cover crops in the West, Kentucky, where the crops are king. You're not competing with pasture land systems, in the middle of the state, where that's the issue. Forest owners would only be competing against other forest owners. So over the last few years, over the last 4 years specifically, we have provided $12.2 million in funding to our forest owners. That's averaging about $2 million a year in EQIP, and it's about $1 million a year in CSP payments. So in those two programs, we're spending quite a bit of money, and we've actually worked with 1,100 woodland owners in those years, in those last 4 years. So moving on to practices that we would do in woodland setting, forest stand improvement, brush management, and we consider that invasive species removal, tree and shrub preparation and establishment, preparing the site, getting them planted. Fence and access control are important as we have livestock potentially interacting in woodland. Access control, herbaceous weed control, and early habitat successional development. Those are all practices that NRCS would potentially cost share for in woodland setting. Well, the very most important thing, the single most important thing, is go to your local office. Have a conversation with them, talk about what your goals are, what you'd like to do, get a farm plan out of that, get a forest stewardship plan. Planning, the technical assistance always comes before financial assistance for us. So make sure you get that technical part done, get those plans written, all of that. You're going to want a farm and tract number from the Farm Service Agency because you have to become eligible for financial programs before you're going to get a financial program. So get the technical stuff first, get a farm and tract number, become eligible for programs. Then when you sign up, know that those programs are competitive. And there will be scores written, things like that will be done. So, you need to be competitive. But maybe the second most important thing after go to your local office and develop that relationship and get that planning work done, probably the second most critical thing is you're going to probably have to be patient. It's not a first come, first serve program. It is a competitive program. So we're looking to solve the worst problems first. So understand that you might not get selected the first year, but you might. It might be several years, but it isn't a take your turn kind of program. So if you're willing to be patient and you're willing to work at it and you're willing to learn what kinds of things NRCS is prioritizing, all of those things can help you get a contract, which is, after all, the kind of the bottom line objective of a lot of landowners. We've been proud to work with Kentucky landowners since 1935. We've got a bunch of history about how to fix natural resource problems. It's a long history, but we've never ever done a single practice on our own. It is always with landowners. We have a cooperative relationship with everybody we work with because we're a voluntary organization. There's nothing regulatory about what we do. If people don't want us doing it, we're not there. So we have this long history working with hundreds of landowners where their interest is primarily forest land. We're excited to be doing that. Some of the partners we work with, Division of Forestry, the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, the University of Kentucky, the U.S. Forest Service, and absolutely all the local conservation districts. We're proud to have them as partners, and we're really excited to work with many of you. Come to our local offices, give us a chance to see what we can do for and with you. It's a partnership that'll be well worth your time.
Well, Billy, those were really good videos. And that's one thing that I love about the virtual short course is that they have them. And, you know, now that we do, it's one good thing is that, you know, sometimes you'll get home and you go, oh, I don't remember what that person said. You know, you can just rewind and fast forward and all that kind of stuff in these videos. So it works out well. Any websites that are listed, you can pause it and, you know, and watch it right then. So that actually helps because you can't do that in real life. So that actually might help, you know, the viewer.
Yeah, no, a remote for life, wouldn't it be something?
Exactly.
No, I agree, Renee. It's really important to be able to have access to those, I think, at your leisure and be able to revisit as needed. You know, I think, you know, if you start out watching the webinars that our forestry and natural resource professionals did here off of our team, I think that's a great primer to get you set up to watch those state forest videos and actually see some of these practices that they were talking about in their presentations play out. And then you get to learn from all the partner organizations that can actually help you do practices on your own property. So we hope that folks will get a lot out of this. We hope it'll get widespread, and you know, we think a lot of people benefit from going through this program. So again, we encourage you to register for that and participate in it, and please share it with others that you think can benefit from that program. So
we did have a question. Somebody wanted to know if mowing increases soil compaction on the trees.
It certainly can, you know, and I could probably pull up Darren Morris if I needed to here, but what I would say is you don't want to be mowing when it's wet. Not only is it hard to mow, but it also makes the soil much more prone to compaction. And really what it is the benefits of controlling that competition are way better than any kind of negatives with some soil compaction. So yes, some soil compaction will occur as part of that, but again, the benefits of keeping that competition down outweigh that. And we just got to be smart about mowing when we do it, for sure. All right.
No, that's the only question we have.
Well, good. So folks, again, please check out the virtual Woodland Owner Short Course. We put it out there for people with an interest in forestry and natural resources here in the state of Kentucky. And, you know, please check it out and share that with others. But keeping the show rolling, Renee,
right.
we got a big celebration coming up here in Kentucky next week, right?
We do. It's called Tree Week. And Dr. Ellen Crocker is going to talk about kind of, I guess, Tree Week forestry style is kind of what I'm calling it, and what forestry and what we're going to be doing. So does Dr. Ellen Crocker be able, there she is. You can talk a little bit about what forestry is going to be doing during that week.
Great, great. So if you haven't heard of Tree Week before, this is the first time, and it's an event that was started in Lexington with the Urban Forest Initiative and their many partners. and it recognizes trees and their values each October. And of course, typically this is a lot of in-person programs, and things are a little bit different this year, but I think we have a really exciting lineup. So I'll share my screen so you can check some of that out. But here's the flyer for Tree Week, and it's happening October 10th through 17th. And here's our flyer. So we here in the Forestry Extension team have developed a whole bunch of different webinars that are associated with this during Tree Week. Everything from identifying Kentucky's trees, forest health, common landscape trees, trees for birds, and tree and wildlife assistance in Kentucky. And of course, next week's episode of From the Woods Today is going to be Tree Week themed.
Yeah.
So we'll be visiting a retail location and shopping for trees. So I think a great activity for Tree Week is to plant your own tree. And we'll take you to shop for trees and pick out the best tree for your site and how to do that. So we have special guest Josh Kaiton. And if you want to visit their website, not only can you find our events, but you can find a broad range of different events that are happening both in person in the Central Kentucky area, as well as remotely for everyone, regardless of where they're located. So you can find that link there, and I'll also put it in the chat, and hope to see you on Tree Week.
Yeah. Ellen, I'm excited about Tree Week. You know, anytime that we can get people thinking and talking about trees, in my mind, is a good time. So next week should be really great. Please, folks, help us share this information. We really feel like there's a lot of people out there that would benefit if they knew about these opportunities. And, you know, big shout out also to the Urban Forestry Initiative. You know, that was really started here out of UK with a lot of other community partners as well. But a little hat tip to Dr. Mary Arthur and Dr. Lynn Kenny for really spearheading that Urban Forestry Initiative and getting these Tree Weeks launched. And Ellen, I know you've been a big part of that group for a long time too. So thank you again. It seems like you're involved in everything, Ellen. So it's great to have you on the team for sure.
Well, if it's related to trees, I sure like being involved with it.
Well, we thank you for doing that, Ellen. And we hope everyone joins us again next week for the Tree Week. And then throughout the week, well, like I said, we'd have the different promos on there.
Yeah.
And also check out that website, and you might find other events that you like that are related to Tree Week.
Yeah, good point. I think that, you know, they've got a little adopt a tree thing on there, so you can kind of see, you can adopt a tree, but you can also kind of learn how valuable individual trees are in the landscape and around your home. So yeah, check out the Urban Forestry Initiative website when you can. All right, I guess since we're talking about trees.
Trees, exactly. Instead of Tree Week, it's Tree of the Week.
Yeah, so Laurie Thomas again has presenting us with a Tree of the Week. Laurie, how are you today?
Doing good, doing good.
Good. So,
tell us a little bit about this tree we're going to be talking about today.
So we're doing yet another oak. Kentucky has a lot of oaks, so there'll be lots of the programs. This one's one of our red oaks. It's a southern red oak, and you may not have heard of it, but once you see it, you go, "Oh, I've seen that." It is quite a common upland oak, red oak, and yeah. So here's southern red oak.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the Tree of the Week, the Southern Red Oak. Southern Red Oak, Quercus falcata, is one of the 11 red oak species that are commercially important in North America. It's also called Spanish oak, turkey foot oak, water oak, or red oak. It is one of the more common upland southern oaks. In addition to its timber, southern red oak is an important wildlife tree and has utility as a shade tree. Southern red oak is a medium to large size tree that grows 70 to 80 feet tall and up to 24 to 36 inches in diameter. It typically has a long, straight trunk and a rounded crown. It's relatively fast growing and hardy, and it can live up to 150 years. Southern red oak is widespread in the southeastern United States. It is characteristically an upland tree that grows on dry, sandy clay soils, but it is occasionally found on sandy loam soils along streams and fertile bottoms. Southern red oak is typically found in transitional forest communities between the mid-slope hardwood forest and the upland pine forest. Its common forest associates are scarlet oak, sweet gum, black gum, hickory, and pitch pine. It is considered intermediate to intolerant in shade tolerance, and it can be confused with black oak and cherry bark oak. Southern red oak is deciduous with alternately arranged leaves. The leaves are simple in form and typically 5 to 9 inches long. The leaves are somewhat obovate in outline with lobes that are bristle-tipped, and those bristle tips are a good characteristic to tell red oaks as a group from white oaks as a group. Southern red oak leaves have 2 common forms. One has 3 lobes with shallow sinuses, that's the space between the lobes, and it resembles a turkey's foot with 1 long terminal lobe and 2 shorter lobes on the side. The other form has 5 to 7 lobes with deeper sinuses. The leaves are shiny green above and pale and fuzzy below. Fall colors range from russet to copper to brown. Southern red oak is monoecious, which means a tree has both male and female flowers. The male flowers are yellow-green on long, drooping catkins, and the female flowers are reddish and borne in little short spikes. Both flowers emerge with the leaves and the bloom in the spring, and the flowers are wind-pollinated. The fruit is a smallish acorn. The acorns are typically 1.5 inches long, and they're kind of orangish-brown in color and somewhat pubescent or furry. The acorn cap is relatively small, covering less than 1/3 of the acorn. The acorns mature in the second growing season and ripen in the fall between September and October. The acorns are dispersed by gravity on steep slopes as well as longer distances by squirrels and blue jays. The hoarding habit of squirrels is important in the dispersal of oak seed. The seeds overwinter on the forest floor and germinate the following spring. Seed production begins around 25 years of age, with best seed production between 50 and 75 years. Good seed crops occur at 1 to 2 year intervals, and southern red oak along with other oaks are capable of vegetative reproduction. They sprout vigorously from the stump when the top has been killed or cut back. Oaks in general are important for wildlife, and southern red oak is no different. The tree provides nesting sites and good cover for birds and mammals late into the season, since oak leaves typically persist longer than their other plant associates. The acorns are important. They're a really important food source for wild turkey, blue jays, red-headed and red-bellied woodpeckers, nuthatches, grackles, raccoons, white-tailed deer, and squirrels, just to name a few. The acorns of the red oak group are especially important in the winter because acorns from the white oak group germinate right after they drop in the fall and are not available throughout the winter. The bark is dark and relatively thick. The rough, broad ridges are separated by deep, narrow furrows or fissures, and the inner bark is slightly yellow like black oak Quercus velutina. The wood falls into the red oak group and shares many of the same traits, but it is considered inferior to northern red oak Quercus rubra. The wood is light to medium reddish-brown color, though there can be a fair amount of variation in that color. It has medium to large pores and a fairly coarse grain. Red oaks, such as southern red oak, do not have the same level of decay resistance that white oaks possess. Southern red oak wood is used in construction lumber, railroad ties, as fuel wood, and for interior finishes and flooring. There are co-national champion southern red oaks. One is in Sussex, Virginia, and it's 321 inches in circumference, 92 feet tall, with a 114-foot crown spread. The other co-national champion is in James City, Virginia, and it's 274 inches in circumference, 140 feet tall, with a 105-foot crown spread. Kentucky also has co-champion southern red oaks. One is in Fulton County, and it's 194 inches in circumference, 95 feet tall, with a 108-foot crown spread. The other co-champion is in Laurel County in the Daniel Boone National Forest, and it's 192 inches in circumference, 97 feet tall, with a 97-foot crown spread. And if you'd like to know more about champion trees, check out American Forest National Register of Champion Trees, or check out Kentucky Champion Trees at the Kentucky Division of Forestry. Now for a few fun facts about southern red oak. It's often called Spanish oak, possibly because it commonly occurs in areas of the early Spanish colonies, but it's unlike any oaks native to Spain. Another common name is turkey foot oak, and that name is derived from the shape of the leaves, particularly on the young trees. One of the grandest southern red oaks recorded, according to Petey in the Natural History of Trees, was in Sudley, Maryland, and it was reported to be 23 feet in girth, 105 feet tall, with a crown spread of 129 feet. The scientific genus name for the southern red oak is Quercus, which is the Latin name for oak, and the species name falcata means sickle shape in reference to the leaves. I hope you enjoyed learning about the southern red oak and get the opportunity to get out into your woodland, a local park, or your neighborhood and enjoy this outstanding red oak.
Cool tree.
It is.
Yeah.
I love it for the leaf. It was one of those, again, you remember certain trees from your dendrology class in college. It was always easy because of the leaf. You're like, ah, I know that one. So yeah, I
Is
like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I may have missed it, but is that it had two different leaf shapes?
Right.
On
So,
it?
on the younger trees, they say I've always seen really that the ones with the 3 lobes. I have seen some that have the 5 to 7 lobes on it, but I tend to see more of the 3 lobe ones. And maybe that's just because that's what I look for, and I go, oh yeah, that's southern red oak. So
Right. And it seems like there's a lot of different oaks in Kentucky. Is that true?
yes, it is. So it's believed that there's around 20 native species of oaks to Kentucky, and of those, 13 of those are red oaks, types of red oaks, and the rest of them are white oaks. So they make up, I mean, we are the oak hickory forest in Kentucky is what covers Kentucky. So it makes up a huge chunk of our forest land, the species do, the groups of oaks do. So yeah.
We just got a question of what's the difference between northern and southern red oak.
One northern red oak is a better, I don't want to say better, it's not the right word, but it's considered it has better growth form, and it has more site requirements. It does better lower in the slope, and it's considered more of a timber tree. That's where, when we talk about red oak, it's usually coming from northern red oak wood, your flooring and stuff like that. So that's the difference. Southern red oak is also, it has to do with its range too. Southern's a more southern species, but it's capable of performing on some of those, hanging on some of those drier, not as productive sites, whereas it would be difficult for northern red oak. It's just, maybe, it's a better tree. I don't know how you really want to put it, but
Right. Well, certainly from a timber standpoint.
Yes, from a timber standpoint. Yeah, but they're both oaks, any of, northern or southern red oak are important for wildlife, especially because, like I said, with red oaks, those acorns lay on the ground throughout the winter because they won't germinate till the following spring, whereas white oak acorns, once they drop, they germinate. So that's a great food source for our wildlife over those lean winter months.
And I noticed too, one thing that we keep mentioning a lot is upland oak. What exactly does that mean?
So when you think about your forest, you think about it's sloped. Most of our, in Eastern Kentucky in particular, it's going to be higher up on the slope. It's not going to be down in the bottom or the cove or the ravine. And it's going to be characterized by, it's higher up on the slope. It's probably going to be drier. It's got more sun exposure, and your soils aren't going to be as quality. They're not as deep. They're going to be thinner because they're a little higher up on the slope, and it's going to be a little bit drier. So these are oaks that are able to, and a lot of our oaks are able to survive in that more upland type area, as opposed to being in the bottomland, that bottomland next to the stream or something like that.
Okay, great.
Dog's barking.
Just thought we may need to get that clarified just a little bit.
Sure.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Well, Laura, thank you again for doing these. You, like I said, you've been building up a really huge reservoir of great trees. So folks, please check those out. All of those are available on our YouTube site as well as in standalone videos. As is all of the content that you'll see here on the show, we have it set up on our YouTube page, so you can check those out individually. But Laura, appreciate the work on that for sure.
Sure. And next week, join us for Tree Week, as Dr. Crocker was saying, and Billy. And our tree of the week is the bur oak. So it is a really fascinating tree. So I can't wait to do that one. So
yeah, no doubt that'll be a good one. Looking forward to that. And Renee, we wanted to bring Dr. Crocker back on for a moment if we could. Dr. Crocker is going to speak a little bit about some genetically modified organisms, and there's a comment period going on that may be of interest to some of the folks here. It has to do with a pretty important tree.
Yeah, so some of you might have heard about this and been wondering what's going on. So I just wanted to share a little bit more information on the situation with American chestnut and the current open public comment period related to that. So American chestnut, you know, it's a tree that used to be dominant in our forests. In the Southern Appalachians, American chestnut was thought to be about a quarter of the trees. That's hard to imagine, right? That's a ton. And not only were these trees big, tall timber trees that were, you know, huge and dominant, but they did a lot for the people that lived in those areas as well as the wildlife. So this is a photo of some of the leaves. You can kind of see that characteristic serrations on the end, as well as the flowers when it's in bloom. But it also is a prolific nut producer. You know, chestnuts are valued for their nuts, and the American chestnut certainly was by both humans and wildlife, and a big source of food, really valued by people. So here's a photo, kind of an old photo of people standing next to one of these giant American chestnuts. But clearly we don't have those American chestnuts anymore. So what happened? There was an invasive fungus, an invasive pathogen that has wiped out the American chestnut. And you'll still see some sprouts coming up in the woods. The reason for that is the fungus is called chestnut blight, the disease that it causes. Chestnut blight kills trees and stems once they get to a certain size. So they can sprout up from the roots. The roots aren't killed, but then those trunks will be killed once they get to a certain size. And here's a photo of what that looks like. You can see that the cracking in that trunk, that's part of the fungus, as well as the plant's response to it. And that kind of orangish stuff, you can see that's the fungus growing and making spores on that tree, killing that tree. So the loss of American chestnut really can't be overstated from an ecological perspective. You know, how are our woods dealing with the loss of this tree that was dominant in such a central part, not just of the people's lives that lived there, but of those forest communities, of the way that they interacted with other plants and wildlife and everything else. So there have been many efforts to try to bring back the American chestnut. These are mostly from the perspective of both the historical importance of the tree, as well as thinking about how can we create healthy woodlands if we don't have this species that was so essential. So many of those efforts have been led by the American Chestnut Foundation that you might have heard of. They've got several different approaches, and they work with scientists around the world on this. One of those is trying to breed resistant chestnuts by hybridizing with various Asian chestnut species that are more resistant. So our chestnut blight came from Asia, and there it causes less damage to those trees. So they've tried to make hybrids with Chinese chestnut and American chestnut. And here you can see one of the orchards that they actually have here at EKU. The Kentucky chapter of the American Chestnut Foundation has partnered with Eastern Kentucky University. Lots of chestnuts that are growing, different levels of hybridization with Chinese chestnut. And those results are somewhat mixed because while you might get some resistance, and that's really exciting, Chinese chestnut doesn't look like our trees. It's not a big forest tree. It grows differently. So still searching for that American chestnut. Another thing that has been done is to try to hunt for those American chestnuts that might still be out there. Maybe they've got some resistance to chestnut blight. Sadly, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of that out there. While we still can find trees, I'm going to encourage you to look for them when you're out in your woods or hiking around. And if you see them, report them using this TreeSnap app, treesnap.org. You can record the locations of any American chestnuts. For the most part, those trees are pretty susceptible to chestnut blight. But they've been taking other approaches too, and one of those is transgenic chestnut. So researchers at SUNY ESF have partnered with the American Chestnut Foundation and developed a tree. They inserted a gene from wheat. That gene is an oxidase gene, and basically what it does is it de-weaponizes the fungus that attacks chestnut. It breaks down a compound that it uses to infect the tree and cause problems, and the end result is what they're calling their Darling 58 tree. That's the name of the one that they have. But you can see here, this is a Chinese chestnut, an American chestnut that have been inoculated with this fungus, and you can see they're both dying. But this tree with that gene from wheat is resistant, and it can withstand the chestnut blight. So obviously that's a transgenic tree, and people have a lot of different feelings about that. I think it holds great potential in terms of being a viable American chestnut, true American that's going to grow in its form. But there's lots of different perspectives on that. And right now is the comment period for you to share how you feel about deregulating the status of that tree. So if you have opinions about that you'd like to share, I encourage you to check out that public comment period. It ends October 19th. And the American Chestnut Foundation has really put together some fabulous resources on that tree, the work that they've done related to it, and trying to interpret what it's going to mean if it's deregulated and able to be released across the landscape. Because the goal would be not to keep that one tree, but for that tree to breed with all of our native Kentucky chestnuts and other chestnuts to result in some trees that are resistant to chestnut blight that can thrive in our environment. So if you want to learn more, I encourage you to check out the American Chestnut Foundation, and we actually have a Kentucky chapter, but you can find them by www.acf.org. And we have a new fact sheet that should be coming out soon on American chestnut, the tree itself. It does mention some of the breeding efforts, but mostly focuses on the tree, what it is, how it's historically used, and what to look for. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and let us know if you have any questions.
Well, thank you, Ellen. We greatly appreciate that presentation. And, you know, it is crucial for people to get their opinions out there. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, what an iconic tree, and be interesting to see how things proceed with it going forward. So, Dr. Crocker, thank you again for sharing that with us, and looking forward to checking out that fact sheet too.
Yeah. It's amazing to see those big pictures of those trees. I mean, they're humongous, and you know how they used to be out there in the landscape. So.
Yeah. Kentucky's got some beautiful forests, and that certainly was part of those forests at one point. I mean, while it's still there, you know, the long term is uncertain for that. So,
yeah.
Wow, Renee, another great show. You know, I think we covered a lot of ground today. A big thanks to all of our presenters, for sure.
You.
Big thanks also to our Facebook Live viewers. We appreciate y'all being with us. You know, please put comments in the comment section there, and we'll try to respond to those as quickly as possible. And big thanks to all of those joining us via Zoom as well. So again, please help us spread the word about From the Woods today. We feel like there's a lot of folks out there that would enjoy it and get a lot out of it. And all of these shows, Renee, are recorded, right?
They're recorded, and then we put them on FromTheWoodsToday.com. So you can watch any of your favorite episode. And also there's a survey link there. So if you have questions, or I know Dr. Springer has actually put snakes on that people have asked for ID. So he's had things on there. So you never know when we might show something that you sent us. So use it as a show idea. So we're happy to get any kind of suggestions or comments from you.
Yeah, again, folks, thank you all for being with us and spending a little time with us and trying to learn more about Kentucky's woodlands and wildlife. We really appreciate your time. And if we can do anything to be supportive of your efforts, please let us know.
Definitely. But until then, make sure to join us again next week, Wednesday at 11 o'clock on Facebook Live, or go to FromTheWoodsToday.com and click our Watch Live link.
Yeah, remember, Tree Week is next week. So, yeah, check it out. We had a link in the chat pod there. So check that out. And again, Wednesdays is a special Tree Week special show. So looking forward to that. So
until then, take care.